Done as in good to go. Awesome. Thank you, Brendan. Awesome. Kia ora. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody here. We do have one apology this morning, and that is Councillor Dow. I'd like to move this apology be accepted. Second, Councillor Christensen, all in favour? Okay, thank you. He's at a regional land transfer hearings today. So he's going to be listening to hearings all day, which is right up his alley, so I'm very excited. Welcome, Tanya, from a long way away. Gosh, that rain sounds heavy.
Kia ora koutou.
Okay, councillors, before I start the meeting, I'd just like to open with karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa panamu te moana, ki huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, araha atu araha mai, tātou I a tātou kata, hui e tai hiki e. Thank you. Moving on to my words of wisdom. They're getting few, but here's this morning. The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He or she is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. That's by Ronald Reagan. And one which I've always actually lived by, higher character, train skill. That's from the former president of the CEO of Porsche. So I guess you're on the right track. There's no late items in today's agenda, and everybody, this is any objections, are happy with the order of today's meeting. Good morning, guys. Andy Browner. Any councillors that have to declare or need to declare a conflict of interest in today's meeting? We have no one speaking in the public forum, but I will welcome both of you here. Good to see you. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, that's right. And also apology for early departure from Councillor Jeffries, so I believe we're probably going to be done by the councillor. But anyway, noted, and you have to reply this stuff. Confirmation of minutes of the Ōtorohanga District Council, 19th July 2022. Do I have a movement and a second for those, please? We have Councillor Johnson, second Councillor Williams, all in favour? Any corrections or points arising from those minutes?
This one on page 6. Item 267, the application for the Ōtorohanga rally. I just wondered whether Mark had a response back from the car club to that, but also in the preamble to the resolution. The bond amount is shown as 10,000, and I think it should be 5. Just get that changed to 5.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you've got that noted. And in terms of response, Mark, was there one from the really organised?
I haven't had a response directly, but there is with the person who understand what we discussed.
Okay. Yes, so that's right. Just making sure they follow through the requirements requested by council. Thank you. Thanks, council. No other matters, councillors? Okay, moving on to the receipt of the minutes of the Kapia Community Board in August 2022. We're done. Okay, that's right. The meeting was cancelled during that week. My apologies. Receipt of minutes of Ōtorohanga Community Board August 2022. Is there a community board meeting? Okay, lots of meetings which shouldn't take place. Moving on to my Google report. Following the council meeting on the 19th of July, our last council meeting, I drove to Palmerston North for the local government conference, and that was as a result of chairing the reason for that was chaired the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs AGM that following morning, which is really good. It's the largest turnout we've ever had in an AGM for Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. We attended national conference on 21st and 22nd and had the opportunity to speak to the conference attendees on social cohesion and post-pandemic New Zealand. So it's like a hell of a deep subject, which obviously I managed upon. July 25th, we had the Trevor Skilton talking about a lot about the history of the roading of Ōtorohanga and where we're thinking going forward. The following day with Philip Jones around the review of our financial systems within council. I attended the Bureau of Funding Raya on the 27th. Local government AGM was held via Zoom on the 28th. I attended the Festival for the Future Inspiring Leaders Prize giving on the 30th. And that is as a consequence of Yes Task Force being a partner and sponsor of Festival for the Future. At an NTFJ Zoom on future partners to assist in community resilience programs on the 2nd of this month. And that is all about so far Yes Task Force for Jobs on a national level. And this year's, excuse me, with the community employment hub in Ōtorohanga. At this stage, any of that partnership work has only been done with Ministry of Social Development. So there's a lot of work in terms of where we can get support from banks, Microsoft, who we're working with currently, other business associates, but then also from there, discussions we'll be having with MB and Kokiri and Ministry of Youth Development going forward in terms of where that partnership works, working in alignment with the MOU that was signed in 2018. So it's just getting that bigger on the national level to support rural provincial New Zealand. We had the Chief Executive's performance review on the 3rd of August. We had a Zoom meeting with Minister Louise Upson on the 4th. Ōtorohanga Town Concept Plan meeting and Town Concept Plan breakfast on the 5th. Three Waters update and advice meeting on the 8th. And that's for somebody who's working closely in the Three Waters space, just to see where his thinking was in alignment with my own in the Three Waters space. Caught up with Malcolm Reynolds, who led the Groundswell people that here for our meeting again on the 9th. Another MTFJ catch up on the 10th, which is our weekly catch up. The Waikato Plan leadership meeting yesterday, and it was the final meeting of the Waikato Plan with Dame Margaret Wilson as the chair. So going forward, it's really working around getting an independent chair away from the government ministries, community contribution and local government. Someone who has the manner in which to put that forward, training. That's pretty much an update of what we've been up to. So I'd like to move that would be accepted. Second, Councillor Jeffries, all in favour. Any questions, councillors?
Yeah, it's just looking at those three things and it's kind of quiet at the moment. What is briefly? What stage are we at?
The stage has gone through at this stage where we're at is where the submissions have come in and proposals going forward in terms of how the Three Waters is put out with the four entities in July 24. So yeah, there's a lot of work in that space. In terms of what that final model looks like, goodness knows at this stage. I'm just hoping that the government listens to the submissions that have come forward with the urgency and the need that's actually needed for this to work successfully. Where we are, I think we're at the start of a lot of change over the next few years, and the model at this stage, as we know, is probably not valid for us. So what amendments to make to that proceed? And that was leading up to central government elections next year as well. Any further questions? Good, thank you. Moving on to item 270, capital projects report for the month ending 30th of June 2022. Mark, over to you.
Set the slide this down. Good morning. Take the report as read, but I think if I just go through and maybe touch on a few of the points in here. We've come to the end of the 21-22 financial year. We actually missed the last month, so this is probably a little bit a month behind, so to speak. So you'll see there we had 50% of our capital projects completed on sort of end of June, but we have a further 30% forecast to be completed by the end of August, and probably just the latest update is probably moving September. So just
Mark, if we carry on two things. Tanya, can you hear Mark clearly? Oh, sorry, Mark. And secondly, do you want questions on the way through or at the end?
entirely up to you. If you want to stop me, I'll answer your questions.
Thank you.
So you it's just finishing off the tail end of those projects. So the ones that are near complete are at 90 to 95%. So it would be ideal to have them finished at the end of the year, but it should be after. So we're still looking at about an 80% completion, which is still pretty good considering the challenges we've had this year with materials, etc., and slightly down with our forecast a few months ago, about 5%.
Mark, with that then, I mean, 5%, like I'm really pleased with the outcome at 80% completion, there's no question. But going forward, there doesn't seem to be a change in where the supply chain issues are going forward. What do you do to ensure that we are up around that 85% as a consequence of challenges?
So one of the things we've done, and an example is on a recent contract, is we've actually pre-purchased a lot of the materials. It's something that we haven't done in the past. So we've had to purchase pipe, which is now stored, ready for the project. So we're not waiting for that material to come in when the project's ready to start. We've already got it. So it's changing probably the way we do things. It's been sort of ahead, being ready. And a good example is the delays in waiting for the pipe for Ōtorohanga. We ordered that a lot earlier. We may have had it ready to go. So those are the sorts of things. Again, we are looking at we're looking at a 3-year program. So if we look at it in that 3-year period rather than the year by year, I think we're still on track. And this year we won't have the stimulus fund projects, which will also take considerable time. Should give us some more staff and resource to concentrate on our capital projects. In saying that, and you'll see in my report, some of the capital projects we're taking on at the moment are maybe less in quantity, but definitely not less in size and quality. So yeah, we've still got quite a bit of work to give us. If you look down there, I've sort of noted a couple of the key projects that this financial year, and I've tried not to just talk about roads and pipes. So you'll see one of the larger projects we've got this year is the cemetery expansion earthworks, which Jared is currently working on, and there's also that road rehabilitation, Mangamahoe and Turitea, which we're just about to go out to tender. Considerable projects coming up, along with the civil waste projects.
Mark, how challenging is that going to be, the repair work on those slips and on the Kiwi?
So I've only just this morning read a bit of an update on that. So we've got a couple of options in front of us. I sort of can't really comment on them yet because I haven't had to read them. But yeah, so when I know a bit more.
And where does that funding come from? Is there the emergency funding for that?
So currently it comes from within existing budgets. Yeah. But should the cost be excessive, we do have that emergency on application. But we're not going to look at that at this stage.
When does that, sorry, just as a question, when does that kick in for clarity? At what point do you cross a threshold for emergency funding for the application to be worthy of?
Yeah, so it's my understanding it's over $100,000, and we had budget from last year that we've carried through into this year, so we'll use that before we apply for it. So, and I think that's on one-off events, so yeah, we're not at that stage.
So see what this weekend brings.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I was hoping it would travel below us. And now I've lost train of thought. So yeah, I've sort of put in a list there of the stimulus fund projects that we completed. You'll note that some of the numbers don't line up with some of my early reported numbers, but there was some of that funding that was used in consultancies and collaborations. So I've sort of pulled out what we sort of look at our tangible projects that show that the funding went towards. When you look through that list, it's quite a considerable amount of work we got done, which is really good. Funded by the central government. And yeah, just going down into the sort of capitals there. This will be the last time we see this table. I'll refresh it for the next council meeting. And yeah, pull out a lot of those projects. Focus more on the current projects.
Thanks, mate. Councillors, questions? Yes, Councillor Williams.
Back to the start, and that sort of looks like quite a slump on that slip. Are we looking, keeping in mind? I mean, I'm sure you are, but particularly that one that especially when we went to visit up on Mangati Road, where residents were concerned about like a slump, and we met on the day start there, and that is under a regular sort of watch. Have we got more of a close look up on those susceptible roads, given the weather that we've got over the last few months and what's coming?
Sorry, which road were you?
Mangati Road was the one that we were looking at the time.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure. When were you looking at?
There's further up from where the concrete mixer fell off the edge.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's a bit of land movements subsiding further up. It hasn't affected the road yet, but the residents are really concerned about the movement that's taking place. Like talking to Lou afterwards and getting on the road, he said, look, it's something about monitoring on a regular basis. So I suppose back to Councillor Williams' question, with the weather working out over the recent weeks and months, has that movement of that land accelerated, and are we finding problems around the district?
Not to my knowledge. I'm in regular contact with our rating team, and I think, as I sort of alluded to earlier in my report, I think we've come through this weather events quite well. We're definitely not experiencing it with some other areas. So our network is regularly inspected by our team. So at this stage, I actually went up Mangati Road a few weeks ago. So not the slip through, but we had some issues around the forward. So
The other thing was, how many difficult to locate connections are there in the country?
we estimate about 30. It could be 50. Difficult to look at. So the complications we've had is some properties are connected to other properties, and until we start sort of digging up those pipes, we won't know. What we're trying to avoid is doing the easy fix, which is install the meter at the property and not at the boundary, because we'll end up with some laterals that we won't know exist. So it's very similar to what we had in Ōtorohanga, where we had to just pick them off one at a time and deal with what's in front. And believe it or not, we're still dealing with some of those 4 or 5 years later. It's just they are difficult. So they'll be done in-house.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, no, just a couple of quick ones. Just following on from that. In our situation, our neighbour's property, which is below us, their Toby is up at their front gate, and their water supply is an alpha pipe which runs right down this boundary and across the front of their section down to their header tank. Now, their property is on Koiwi Street, and we're on Rosman Terrace. So there are those sorts of issues too that I'm hoping will be looked at, because it seems a nonsense to have their table about 150 metres away from their property. So I'm just making that point. The other thing I was just going to ask too is that, and I I've raised this before, but some time ago, Andreas, when he was here, and I'm not sure whether it was you or Roger, we did a quick walk around Carfia and had a look at footpaths and curtain channels. Was that you or Roger?
No.
It must have been Roger. And we identified that there are a number of footpaths in Carfia that are in really poor condition. So I'm hoping that your district footpath maintenance program that you've got here will take care of those, because they do need a lot of work. In fact, some of them may have to be ripped up and replaced.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that footpath projects in Carfia in year 2, so we should start to see that work this year.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce.
Further councillors? Okay, we have a staff recommendation here that Ōtorohanga District Council received the report titled Capital Projects Report for the month ending June 2022 from Mark Lewis, Group Manager Engineering and Assets. Moved Councillor Thompson, seconded Councillor Foss, all in favour? Okay, moving on to item 271. Thanks, Mike. Item 271, Ōtorohanga District Development Board 6 monthly report from January to June. Nadia and I assume Michelle and I assume Al. Probably shouldn't assume anything, should I? Welcome.
Kia ora, councillors. Thank you very much. My report is really an overview of our relationship with the Ōtorohanga District Development Board, and I'm happy to take questions on that before handing over to Michelle, who's our ED Manager at the ODDB, and Al Freestone, the Project Navigator for the Ōtorohanga Employment Hub. But also apologies for omitting the housing data from the agenda, which I believe you now have.
Yeah, thanks for that. Probably the only comment I'll make about the relationship is absolutely fantastic. Now, when I look at the relationship with ODDB now, sitting with you two ladies on board as well, and with yourself, Nadia, how that is matured, and it's really exciting having an EDA effectively that is doing this wonderful work for us that on reflection should have been done 10, 20 years ago as well. So yeah, really good to see where that relationship is matured in recent times, especially as a lot of that is due to the 3 years. So thank you. Michelle?
Thank you, Mayor Max and councillors, for having us here today. Apologies for the loud reunion potentially happening in the hallway in advance for our old colleagues. So we'll just put up outside. Apologies for that. And also apologies for Cara, who's not here with us today. But Al and I really just wanted to hear any questions you had in relation to the work that we've been doing. There's a variety of things, I guess, in our report for the last 6 months, and a few things we could probably update you with on future planning. But interested, to hear if you have questions on any of the topics that are in there around our projects that are ongoing around housing, retail revitalisation, the business community support, the employment hub works. So,
Yes, Councillor Foss.
I would like to endorse the Mayor's words about the development of the development board. I've been on here 9 years, and I have to say, this is the most impressive piece of work that is done in that time. And so I congratulate you all to have actually found the right place for the development board and what its role is and that kind of thing. So all the best for the future.
Councillor Johnson and Councillor Jeffries.
Yeah, I'm equally excited with how well the across and how well you actually attended on the grant, which is fantastic. So I'm really impressed. And I have to apologise. I've asked this question once before, and I took one notes and I can't find the answer to it. But it's just with regards to the tier of the eyesight. We've got a tier 2 and not a tier 1. Just different. I just wonder if that can just be explained again for me. Sorry.
yeah, sure. So the VINIC review is concluded that they want to offer up tier 1 eyesight opportunities in tier 2. The tier 1 group are what you'll see is the larger eyesight organisations around the country, so potentially Hamilton or Wellington or some of the bigger city ones. My understanding in the Waikas order was very few that put themselves forward as tier 1. We put ourselves forward as a provisional tier 2 organisation. In October, they are bringing the eyesight network together to share the concepts of the new branding and the funding that will be part of that. So that'll be the opportunity for us to understand actually what's the cost to our organisation to stay as part of the eyesight brand. We've certainly done the background work with the community, and there's a desire to have a community information centre and a tourist information centre in town of some sort. I guess it'll come down to what's the value provided of being part of the eyesight branding once we see the new concepts that they bring out, whether we stay part of that network. We don't know yet.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'll add my congratulations to a very comprehensive report, so well done. Very informative, thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. On page 3 of the report, item 5 talks about district security, pardon me, and looking to explore security services and the like. I'm not too sure whether you're aware of it, but and I'm sure it's going to come up at the Carpio Community Board meeting next. But we had quite a serious incident at the car park out there just recently at Kariwa, where a visiting fisherman had all of the tyres on his vehicle slashed, all of the tyres on his trailer slashed, and he ended up having to get a tow truck down from Auckland to get him out of the place. And in the meantime, we had news who the local who happened to be right past him as well. So it was a very unpleasant situation. But the reason I've raised it is that we believe that there was a need for further security cameras in the country, and one in particular down that area where there seems to be ongoing issues in the car park. So I'll just raise that with you, just have a think about it, if you wouldn't mind. The district promotions on page 4 down the bottom, talking about the videos. I may have raised this previously, but we've actually done, there was actually 5 done. You've only mentioned 2 there. I wondered whether we could add to that list, please. Jack Cunningham, Tom Hokie, and Patsy Scott, please. And I understand that John Thompson, who's the director of the museum, is looking to actually do perhaps 1 or 2 more as well. The only other thing was we had a quick look through the new hotel at Carpio just recently, and what a magnificent facility that's going to be, not only for the town but for the district. And, so there was a comment made, and I think you pretty much covered it off here anyway, but there was a comment made that the district development board perhaps could have done a little bit more in that area to assist, if you like, and promote that hotel, and also through Waikato tourism. There seems to have been not a lot of interest shown in that area. Could be corrected on that, but the project manager out there said that they actually had to involve Tourism New Zealand to get some coverage on that, and they were told that if they had a swimming pool, they would have been rated as a 5-star hotel. And the answer to that was looking out the window, there's a big swimming pool straight outside the pool. So anyway, I just wanted to add those few comments to you. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could reply, the Ōtorohanga Employment Hub has been engaged with Sands of Carpio for over a year, supporting them in the fronting recruitment. We've closely with Tom and his team through many lockdowns, and it's been really fantastic this year. Earlier, as you know, we have a satellite site, and did have a satellite site at the Carpio Sports Centre, and we interviewed 17 people for Tom. So we've worked towards focusing on locals and meeting his needs. So we've met with him on a regular basis under the employment hub. So hear what you're saying. I think when I met with Tom probably 3 weeks ago, we did discuss the beginnings of the tourism side of it. And I loved his comment about if he had a pool, you know, that would be 5-star, but there is a beautiful harbour out there that's equally accessible. So no, thank you for your comments. I just wanted you to be assured that we have been in the background there and supporting them.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that, just in conversation with Jason Dawson, who's obviously with in New Zealand now, mentioned the concern around Hamilton Waikato tourism. He's been talking with them as well. Sands Cartier aren't ready for the conversation quite yet with in New Zealand or Hamilton Waikato tourism yet, while they're just getting probably the final pieces in place. But the conversation is ongoing between New Zealand, Hamilton Waikato tourism, and Sands Cartier. So be assured that something is happening. Yes, Councillor.
I was just interested out with the employment hub in Thrive in college. Is there much crossover? Like, because Thrive does pastoral care too at the college. And I was just interested, like reading on the reports, like if there was much crossover.
So for the college, they work with a number of providers and each delivers their own expertise, I'd say. So how we work with the college is that we're the conduit between employers, if there's work experience that the students are looking for. Also, if there's any roles that are looking for school leavers, we contact the college and make them aware of that. We also work closely with the college. We, under Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, I wrote a proposal for presenting, which is a digital CV. And Ōtorohanga College is only the second college in New Zealand to receive those digital CVs. So what we've done is worked with Pathways College and looked at anybody that's going to be leaving school this year, if they're year 12 or year 13. And then we're working with them to do the CV workshop as they go and having an awareness of them. And we also, especially if employees for after school jobs, we're working with the school that way and just sounding them out and saying, hey, have you got somebody that's interested in doing this? We've taken a little one step further where there's been work experience opportunities, and we've contacted employers and said, hey, the school are looking for this, and then basically we connect the two and step back for support from the pastoral sense. So yeah.
If I may add to that too, I think we're really fortunate in our district to have a number of providers that look after our rangatahi. And in my experience working with youth, that's not a one-size-fits-all model. So by having different providers and youth having a choice potentially of who they're working with, I think we have greater reach for these. Acknowledging there are crossovers.
Probably to add to that too, Nadia, I think certainly there's bespoke delivery from both providers. I think what the community resilience hub or employment hub is doing is complements what Thrive is doing in terms of the work that Jackson Wilson is doing within the college and within the coast. I think that's really important in terms of that mentoring and that synergy between what's going on at the coastal schools and transition to college. So, and that is highly regarded by the school as well. And, the challenge I think for the school at the moment is the loss of some early funding for the support that they need. So I mean that has been discussed. Federal funding has been discussed around how Thrive can get more money to support that as well. So yeah, keep a close eye that everybody's complementing each other as opposed to.
Just when you're talking about employment, I do note that you are the Ōtorohanga District Development. And so there's a whole district out there that is also looking for employment situations. And I know in Arahina, there's a farmer who's going to, well, it's not a farmer, but there's a chicken farm being developed there, and there's going to be the need for a big number of women, and it is women, because they're good at handling small chickens. And So they're going to be looking for a lot of people and going prepared to put buses on to get people there for the work that was in school hours. So you might like to chat to the people, the council there, the details.
Thank you, absolutely.
I'm not sure where we're at the moment. There's a lot of questions. Were you still partway through your report, Michelle? Have you looked at the questions or?
No, I mean, and just part of the district security conversation, like, to put a bit more light on that for next Tuesday night, we have a community conversation for the Ōtorohanga community. That's in partnership with Eric from the OBA, Nadia and myself, and Jimmy, the local constable. And we really are just having a conversation around what is the future vision of the security that's rated now and the security cameras. And I just know that Kat, that we should extend that conversation up to half a year at a later date. Yeah.
And certainly the guy who's, I just want everybody to please speak up for the benefit of those that are not in the room. Can't remember the gentleman's name, but the guy who's been doing the security up until now around the place.
Yeah.
No, sorry about that. The guy who does the cameras and that. Sorry? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the conversation is from the background in my opinion. This little voice came from somewhere. That he's very aware of the need for car theory. That's always the forefront of his conversations as well. So I'll just start with. And the wider community, because Terry does a lot of work for the credit community watch.
Yes, well, I'm just thinking that Ōtorohanga actually paid for 4 security cameras themselves. The district got together and paid for it, so is that not something Clafia can look at?
It's probably the biggest thing. It's not even the cost of the initial setup. It's actually monitoring the cameras and that's where the big piece. Thank you, Michelle. Anything further? Al, do you want to speak to your report, or are you taking it as read?
I'm taking it as read. Yeah, if that's okay. Yes.
Cool, thank you. In terms of that, obviously, you know, my thoughts around the probably the big thing the message back to, and I've said it to you before, Al, the message back to the development board is with the employment hub now that we need some signage outside that recognises MTFJ and MSD in that relationship. I'm not saying just to, but it is actually to boost the profile of the funder of the program, but it's also to acknowledge the government support that's behind this as well. So, thank you. So if there's no further questions, councillors, staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive a report, Ōtorohanga District Council Development Board's 6-month report, 1 January to June 2022, from Nadia Gao, Group Manager Strategy and Community receipt. The move and second, move Councillor Williams, Councillor Jeffries, all in favour? Against? Like, seriously, back to all the development board members and the chair. Thank you for the progress that's been made. I think this is very awesome in terms of where that partnership's going. Okay, moving on to item 272, Sport Waikato 6-month report, 1 January to 30 June 2022. Thank you, welcome. Welcome back. You're going to tell us the history of Wabi, how you came to come back to us.
Well, just before Matthew starts, I'll just say, yeah, really excited to be back. I've been on sabbatical. I spent a sabbatical, so it's been 6 years since I finished up. And I spent 2 years down in Taranui working for MSD with at-risk youth, which was really quite a challenge, but very exciting as well. The things, the opportunities that were there for them, and just to be in that space to see what it's really like. And then I've had 4 years as operations manager for Hockey Wanganui. So we went to Wanganui. So Wanganui was where I was actually based when I was playing hockey for New Zealand as well. So it was kind of really nice to go back and support an organisation that always supported me to get, although it was surviving, it was struggling a little bit. We needed a new turf. So experienced
getting funding from funders. There was 250 grand on the bank when I arrived here, and he had to get it to 800, and I did that within 6 months, and we got a new turf down, and there was collaboration with a lot of other coasts to use our turf. It's a water turf, because the old one was a sand turf. So it was really, really good learning curve for me, that building relationships and managing to get the funding of those that do have the funding. So bringing those skills back. What brought me back was my son was at primary boys, so he's finished school. And I decided that, well, maybe it's about me now, so where do I really want to be? And I was really keen to come back to the Waikato. He's got a job building in Tiamutu with Livingston Builders. So, yeah, so I was scoping out opportunities, and this job came up as a regional connectivity coordinator. And I was lucky enough that Matthew was kind enough to give me the chance to go for the job. And yeah, it's just so cool to be back, and yeah, excited about the new way that we're working. Matthew will talk a little bit more about it, and just the scope and the regional connectivity coordinator. The role says it all. I have Waitanga and Ōtorohanga, and I'm excited about that. It's actually the Waikato West, but for me it's King Country. So I always refer to it within my team. This is the King Country lens, and yeah, and I've grown up here. So, and it's about connecting. So it's not us working on our own. It's about connecting with. We already talked about the many organisations that are working with you. So we're part of that picture, and we bring in the play, active recreation, and sport needs. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Matthew,
Brad,
welcome.
thank you. Glasses now, more Max, but you said near Max, councillors and staff. Thanks very much for the opportunity to present the 6-month report to council. I'll take it as read, but there are a couple of key points I'd just like to highlight for the council before I open up for questions. I think the first time that it's been a challenging sort of space in the world of sport and recreation over the last 12 months. Like all businesses, particularly the resilience needed to come through, and I think clubs here in Ōtorohanga and surrounding Waikato have done very well to enable sport and recreation to still happen over the last 12, 24 months with the pandemic. And that's the great and the good part about sport and recreation. It just offers. There's a lot of anxieties out there. With the pandemic, there's a lot of kids that haven't been going to school. Lots of things going at the moment because of the pandemic, and we hope that sport and recreation is a means to probably try to get back to some normality for the youngsters, particularly. We know that that's a good avenue as well. But I'll, as I say, Robbie mentioned briefly, 21 and was more about embedding change and going away from more of a generalist model to more of a subject matter expert model that's Waikato will be more about influencing the decision makers, influencing change or system rather than being a generalist. And so I'd just like to comment, just cover a couple of key things near Max, which I think highlights generally the report, and then Robbie and I will open up questions for the council. Just Robbie's role has been working alongside council, particularly in alignment with the town concept plan, to review the local play and active recreation and sports plan component. And what is, and I was involved in a bit of feedback, I think very good. Your TCP is a really good plan in terms of future direction or the future direction of our district. But we think that's good because I think in terms of your long-term planning in the next 12 months or so, 12, 24 months, really important that the key aspects of the benefits and where that could fit going forward here in the district over the next 10 years, 15, 10, 20, 30 years through. Support, we've put quite a bit of support in through the connectivity role and linking with King Country Rugby, but also Waikato Rugby and Thames Valley Rugby around the decrease in participation in that particular code around tamariki and rangatahi. And by embedding what we're calling a good sport balances better approach. So very strong of experience. It's around the role of parents on the sideline. It's around coaching, the importance of coaching. So we're having really strong focus around what we're calling the balance is better. We've actually signed an MOU with those three unions. I know there's a link between Waikato Rugby and Rugby here in Ōtorohanga. I'm working with both those unions there, which is quite important. There's a Sport New Zealand activity fund called Tūmanawa, and that's around more around delivery and supporting groups. And period, there's been $6,300 that has gone into Ōtorohanga district. Beneficiaries included Maihihi School, Ōtorohanga College, and also the Hall. So we've done some work there. So that's a fund that we administer on behalf of Sport New Zealand. The college here in Ōtorohanga are supported as part of a King Country Secondary School sport cluster with the focus of keeping young people involved in sport. So that's the real key challenge all the time, is that drop off once they leave intermediate school and go to high school. And there are obvious challenges why, but a lot of it comes back to that quality of experience, the coaching, and we're putting a lot of effort into that as well up down the road at the college. We've invested in, we talk about evidence, and I'm dubious about too much evidence, insights. We talk about insights and evidence, and we have to back that. We have to have the evidence. We have to listen to the voice of tamariki. We have to listen to the voice of coach. So we are getting some really good intel. We've upsized our intel for our districts, including Ōtorohanga, but it does help us to support decision making for council later on in the year. So insights are really important. I'm just pushing my team around the balance of over insights or over evidence. I think you can get too much information. I think we know a lot of the issues are around travel, a lot of the issues are around cost of play. And the other one is around the quality of experience. So it's a very strong coaching thing. So I don't think we need to get too in-depth in insights, but insights are important to inform how do we approach the role of travel costs, fees, and that for our people here in Ōtorohanga District to play sport. And finally, council, I'll pass quickly over to Robbie. The primary education team are working with the Ōtorohanga Kahui Ako. So the Kahui Ako is the community of learning, which is a group of your students that come together to support their lead teachers who they identify about the quality of health and PE inside the curriculum. So the new Sport Waikato is actually working with the teachers, not the kids. It was the old Project Energize model. So it's a different approach, and it's what we believe a more sustainable approach to actually teach. A lot of our teachers that are coming through school now, there is no teaching around the health and PE curriculum, but it's pretty important for them to understand the importance of that, and it is part of their role is to actually have health and PE in school. So we're targeting that aspect to train the teacher to do a lot of work there as well.
Sure. No. And you just clarification, so there's nothing in the teachers' guidebook and teaching the curriculum around sport.
Not as much as it used to be, Max. You would have had a lot more at, say, Teachers College and University of Waikato than what they get now. So a lot of it is literacy and numeracy, but they do need to, we've got a new teacher that arrived yesterday, they actually do, there is a requirement for them to take the kids outside of class in terms of fundamental skills. But a lot of them don't know that. They don't know the essence of what they need to teach. So the approach from Sport Waikato is to actually train these community of learning, Kahui Ako, the lead teachers, for them to go back and teach PE, health and PE. So, Robbie, just real quickly, could you just talk to council about advisory?
Yeah, so one of the key initiatives that's coming out of the long-term plan that I've been working on really in the last 6 months since I've been here is the setting up an advisory group. So that's a district advisory group, and also in my time notes. So an advisory group, which is not a voice just from the sports people, it's a cross-section community and sporting group that needs to have a voice, and it has a youth voice within it. So it's a cross-section so that we're making sure that there'll be discussions around the table within the group of where sports at, for example, since we've had COVID, will be the initial discussions. And then from there, there'll be conversation around what are the needs in our community. So this group will be sorting the needs out within the whole group, and then that information will then feed in through the council to help inform the LTP planning, and also to help action some of the actions that need to come out of the plan. And so there'd be one for Ōtorohanga and one for Waitangi, and the vision for us is then to have an advisory, a King Country advisory group, looking at the cross-district opportunities. And I know that links in very well with where both councils are at the moment, looking at cross-district sharing and understandings. So that is, that at the moment is pretty much ready to go. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be having a first meeting. So just been scoping out and identifying the people that should be part of that. So that's people that are within sport, but also community house, and also having youth representation. So really looking forward to those discussions and that information can be to you over this.
So you hope happy now open up for questions.
Cool. Just a couple of points. In terms of where things have changed with COVID, how does Sport Waikato work with mobilising those inactive rangatahi as a consequence of COVID? They've been sitting in their homes for the last 2 years, playing PlayStation or whatever, and we're seeing a change in the habits. So that's the first question: what's the role of Sport Waikato in remotivating our rangatahi? The other one: what's the role of Sport Waikato with the increased antisocial behaviour on the sideline and patrol towards referees and coaches?
Well, the first, I mean, we're starting to, as I said, gather a lot of evidence now around the voice of tamariki. So we've been speaking to the kids. We've been speaking to these secondary school kids, the rangatahi, which is the voice of rangatahi. So we're getting that evidence. So we're actually understanding more. One of the key things that are coming out, a lot of it, near Max, is the quality of experience. So it's not so much around the result. It's more about it's more about their experience to play. They want a good experience. If they have a bad experience, they won't play sport. They won't. And so what is a quality of experience? That's around coaching. So there's a strong focus around coaching here in Ōtorohanga. So we need to have a strong focus around upskilling coaches, giving them the opportunity. There needs to be a strong focus around the actual competition structure. So we're also hearing a lot now about Saturdays are getting hard. Saturdays are quite important to people. They might be working. So how do we approach competition structure? Could we have some competition that could be late? I know we have issues probably around lights, but could we have some weekday sport going on as well? So that enables different experience as well. So there's a lot. So the information should be telling us around. So we gather the information that should inform us around meeting the needs of not the actual coach at the school, meeting the needs of the participants. So everything needs to be participant centered, not so much around the coach or the school or the principal. It's got to be around the participant. Second thing around the performance of sideline parents or the performance around that. That's that area we spoke. We did a bit of work with rugby, and you'll find balance is better good sports all around the role of parents on the sideline. It hasn't gone away since I've been here. And a lot of the councillors that have been here for a long time too probably would have heard me talk about the role of parents on the side. Again, that's an education around. It's one thing I always remember is you can ask kids around, did you hear your parents? Did you hear that noise? A lot of them don't even hear them. They don't actually. So when a parent yells out, screams out, go, they might be a little bit embarrassed because they know it might be their mum or dad. But it's more about the fact they don't actually hear. They're not really interested around. We're finding out now that it's not so much about the result. A lot of kids will finish, and they won't be that actually fussed that they win or lose. It might be the top team max. It could be the first 15 or the first 11 soccer or the first 11 hockey. But you'll find grade D, they don't really care. All they want to do is actually have a game with their mates, and that's what they want. So it goes back to quality of experience. So we're going to be really hammering home that quality of experience, which has a target parents.
And I might say the advisory group will be the group that will help drive that within their own community, for example. So that group will be the advocacy, and we will search for the champions that can actually effectively start doing some of that work on the sidelines, with the people, signing up with them, saying, this might not be good behaviour, just opening people's eyes. And as far as the youth goes, so we're already working in that space at the moment with around their needs, getting them back. So we have a team that works in secondary, we have a King Country secondary school sports cluster meeting. And within that meeting, just recently, they're all on board. Each school has brought along two student reps to be part of the conversation around, and in that cluster is the planning of what's the actual competition between each other. What's recently happened this season is that the schools have started sharing kids that missed, so there's only so many you can have in a team. So there were kids that were left over. So you had Ōtorohanga, Pupu and Te Woody, for example, joining those kids together to make up a team so they had an opportunity to play. But not only that, youth voice is also giving us information about what do you guys really want. So we have to make it relevant for what they want, and we have to hear that from them. So we're already doing work within that space, and some really exciting ideas coming out of it. And what excited me about when I went to my first meeting, you know, when I started, was to hear that they're sharing, you know, that Te Amutu. So the cluster includes Te Amutu, Ōtorohanga, Te Kuwiri, Pupu and Te Manui. And Te Manui misses out. So this group is really excited, you know, interested in making sure that Te Manui gets included. So we want to have the message is local sport without having them to travel. And is it sport or what is it? But it's some sort of competition, but they have to tell us what they want to have so we can help set it up. So that's what we need to do to engage them in that work is happening.
You were talking that you're talking to parents and teachers. Are you doing anything about the children that are disconnected and for a range of reasons, and seeing that they can participate in some solution?
Yes, so for example, there's talk within our group, the cluster group, but also with rugby is, for example, those ones that are disconnected are ones like during COVID, some kids, you know, had not been able to come back to school because they're having to work now to support their families. So they can't play for the school teams. So we're on the table at the moment of discussions around making sure that we can still include them if they're the right age, school age, they should still be able to go and play for some business teams. And so making sure that there's opportunities for them. And part of my role in the connectivity is connecting also with the groups, the social services groups that we're talking about that are already dealing with those kids too, so that we can make sure that what are their needs, what's going to encourage them to be part of that, and then we can work with the school, you know, so we're bringing everyone together to have a conversation around the town and say, well, what can we do to make sure they're included?
Councillor, there are the social side of it, but there's also groups like Youth Town, some other agencies as well, and we've got relationships with them now in a way that we need to work with, understand what the need is. Obviously, raised a really important point that there are those that play sport, they always will play sport with them, but there's still a lot that are just sitting at home. So how do we try and engage those ones at home? So that's a relationship there with our influence now, not rather than our generalist doing. We influence and understand what the need is, working with your people, your staff, and then working with these agencies to say, well, let's actually do a quite strong approach around trying to target those who can't even get outside their front line.
It's too hard.
And it seems too hard, it's the cost, all those things. What sort of project can we do in the district that really specifically targets those who haven't can't afford it, they've got an opportunity, they're not interested? Is there something special we can do out here in the district that actually can drive a very special day with council working with Guardia around a special event or something that could happen? So I think those are the ones we try and promote those opportunities, whether it's sport, whether it's recreation, whether it's riding your bike along the, learning those sort of things, those experiences. We've got to try and give young people experiences.
This is me project, which has been highlighted in the report, is one that we do down into the yeah, so that's a classic example of the work that we can connect with. So the barrier for the young girls to participate in sport was period poverty, and they couldn't afford products, so they wouldn't go and play sport because they were worried about it. So then we connected with a provider that provided some products and through some training and actually inspiring these girls to just have a go. And now they're actually participating, and we're actually looking at hopefully doing a similar project here. That's been so effective.
interesting. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Worship. Kia ora, Matthew. Welcome back, Robbie. Nice to see you back in the fold. Yeah, after so many years.
Well, it's only been away for 6, so I was here for 14 before that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just a couple of quick questions. I was interested in the work that you're doing with that cluster and the teachers and so on.
Yes.
Are you saying that particularly in the colleges that they don't have PT teachers now dedicated?
Council, they do have them
They
in
do.
colleges.
Colleges, that's
In
right.
colleges, it's more about primary. and
Right.
intermediate.
Okay, that's cool. And I wonder too, in your table there, under the heading primary learning,
Yeah.
the Kahui Ako
Yes.
that you referred to.
Yeah.
I just wondered what level of engagement has there been with the likes of the small rural primary schools like, say, Kawhia or Ōtorohanga or QQ or whatever? Are you guys, I appreciate you've probably got resource problems there too, but do you actually involve those in any way?
They should be part of the Kawiako, the community of learning. And I'm not going, I'll need to check that out, but they should be involved in this whole. So Kawiako is a group and cluster of schools.
Right.
It's primary and intermediate focused. I'd be surprised if they're not involved in this.
Yeah, so I've worked with my PLP team, so they're the ones that do the educating. And definitely, so the Kawiako is the old school cluster groups that used to happen, and there definitely is rural. So there is the rural ones are included. So Kawhia itself is actually included in the Kawiako that is Te Amutu based, because that's they attract that way. Yes, but all the others, so even for Waitangi, like the Tiangas and Tawaroas, they're included in that. And there is a kind of a coast cluster as well that they come around to Kawhia, and that's how the sports have all, they've always played sports against each other as well. So yeah, we're definitely involved with that, and we've actually been having discussions ourselves lately around, because half the problem with the little rural school is the teacher can't get released to actually come to the cluster. So at least we've been able to do that with online now that that's kind of been something we've learned through COVID. But you know, the thing there is rural travel or some sort of funding, and Matthew's been, we want to advocate to Sport New Zealand and to fund us that rural travel is really important. So council already gets some rural travel, but it's not enough for what our little rural schools need. So we're doing some advocacy piece around, it is a must for rural communities. We need funding to help these people travel.
Competition structure too, Councillor Kit, is the your first 15s, you can go and play in Hamilton, whatever it is. But I think the lower grades, let's just have a competition structure around here. We don't have to, and you might play each other every 3 or 4, every 3rd or 4th weekend. But you don't need to be sending Ōtorohanga kids to Te Aroha or Lawrence all the time. That's just too much. It's too much cost. It's so. Can we do in the lower grades? And what we're doing some thinking around that around here with Waitangi or Ōtorohanga. Let's just have some localized competitions. So particularly at the lower grades, they don't have to keep traveling. So we're really looking at that travel thing, because it's a real roadblock. Yeah,
it certainly is out coast
on the coast as well. Yeah,
and going the other way too.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm just interested too that the likes of, say, if I can use as an example, say the Kawhia or Ōtorohanga schools, where you may not have sufficient numbers in each of those schools to form a team, but you could have a combined team.
That's right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, are you doing any work in that area?
We're open. Those are the conversations that we're having.
Yeah.
So we're open to it, and if I might be able to share. So, for example, when I was here last time, we had little hockey competition in Te Kore. So, and that was just a 3/4 size too, but all the primary schools came and played. Down and played. But we had kids that wanted to extend themselves and play reps. But it was really difficult for us to get a little rep team together. But we approached Waikato Hockey about whether our team could make a made-up mixed boys and girls team participate in the intermediate competition up there in Hamilton, and they allowed us to. So we were like a little rep team, and that was magic for those kids. So it's about going to the sports and having conversations. Yeah, need for the participant, and we need to ask the participant what they want. And we have to have seasons transition. There's a big conversation within that. So instead of you having the kid for all this period and summer, you know what rugby, sometimes sports are doing, it's about actually letting the children be able to have a smaller block and participate in another sport, so they get a bit of opportunity to have a balance in their life, so they don't have to become All Blacks from the young age. And so there's a conversation. That's why the advisory group is getting all sorts of sports involved as well, so we can have a conversation across sports. So we're sharing instead of competing for the same thing, because we can't do that in the rural communities.
Just one last question, following on from Mayor Max's comment too about participation. The levels up or down in terms of participation levels?
Well, it's interesting because the levels are pretty much the same, because you talked about trying to engage people after kids after COVID. Actually, the kids have been itching to get back and play sport. So the numbers are there, but it's just been able to make sure that we cater for all of them, and that's where the mixed team thing's been starting to happen. Mixed school to make up a team, because the kids want to play. So we just got to make sure we've got the right kind of competitions for them, and it needs to be led by discussions from them. And that's why we have them on like the secondary school sports advisory committee now.
And I've seen it on other, I think it's actually been on television a couple of times where kids outgrow the gear that they're in, so they have a sort of like a hand-me-down sort of thing to the kids that perhaps can't afford to. So is that something that you guys, or is that something that a school level?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that we can engage in.
Yeah.
And when I was with Sport, Sport Women Nui just recently, my office was based there. They had people donated old equipment.
Yes.
So that every now and then they did a drive, and it's something that I want to try and instigate around here as well. A drive around donating your old equipment that's no longer being used, and then it was given to some of those less fortunate schools who couldn't afford equipment, and it's been a real hit.
The simple answer is yes, we've got a small development connection with the codes that we work for schools alongside lobbying. We've got we've got the people there now that can help structure that carpet, which looks at what combination of school teams that we start. So that's about the only way to go.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Johnson. I just congratulate you on taking on the challenges, and particularly the balance of sport that we talk about, and also the quality of experience and massive challenges, and you're really taking the bull by the horns. But in terms of us as a council, I mean, other than the 35K we contribute each year, is there any thoughts around what else we can contribute to help our community?
I think I mean the model is flipped as we did 2 years ago, Councillor, and I'm really comfortable where we're positioned as an organisation now, knowing there are a lot of good, we're working with a lot of good deliverers out there. I sense it's when you come in and we're talking about it, I mean, having council alongside our brand is really important. And we talked about the advisory group, we talked about the importance of an advisory group. I think that's really critical, Councillor, that it's actually seen that it's been driven locally. Sport Waikato brand inside Ōtorohanga is really important, but it's got to be driven. If we're going to drive change, and we're going to drive perceptions of the way we do things in terms of the quality provision of sport, that's why I really like this advisory group. So if we can get real help from our council and making sure we get this advisory group going, we're certainly, I think that's the key for me, is that if we can get, knowing that it's got council support, it's very important, I think, in this district that a lot of it's locally led as well. So if we can have and that's around the way that we do things with our parents, it's the way we do things with our sports clubs. That combination of Ōtorohanga District Council and Sport Waikato together with some really good local representatives in an advisory board is going to start sending some strong messages that we're aligned with consistently, I think, around the provision of sport and recreation in this district. So certainly we're very grateful to of that fund. enables us to.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, we have staff recommendation here that Ōtorohanga District Council received the reports for Waikato annual report 1 January 30 June 2022. From Nadia, and received the sport 6-month report to Ōtorohanga District Council from 1 January to 30 June 2022. I move that. Secretary Councillor Jeffries. All in favour? Yes. Very.
I understand there's a couple of councillors, Councillor Clausen and Councillor Ferguson, that might not be here in the next term.
No, don't resist.
Can I just say thank you for the contributions and support of our organisation over the time. Councillor Clausen, I know you've been here for a while. I just thank you very much for your service to your district.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Excited to be back.
Going on the order of the agenda, we should be going on to the Hamilton Waikato Tourism report, but there's no other presenters. And as Nadia has to say, what I might do is move on to the Civil Defence Emergency Management Order report, because they will have some fires to put out, well, floods potentially in the coming few days. So, welcome, Dave. So
you.
move on to item 276, Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Report.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, councillors. So again, take the report as read, but there will be a couple of things that I'd just like to highlight. And it's outlined that the report is again split into, I guess, 3 particular areas. One's a national overview, one's regional, and the latter part of the report is more localised information. So from the national perspective, just highlight Civil Defence Emergency Management hasn't escaped, I guess, those national reviews and through central government. So that's the actual Civil Defence Emergency Management Act is being reviewed, looking towards a new emergency management bill. And then sort of falling out of that also is the emergency management plan, which accompanies the Act. And I guess it gives us that operational steer, operationalising the Act. So outlined in the report, I guess, is the timeline there, including the consultation, but that could result in, some significant change on the horizon, really, around emergency management and what it looks like, for local council or nationally. So I guess it's keeping an eye on that, and obviously as it goes through those phases, certainly council will be part of that consultation phase, key as well. So yeah, just highlight that.
Dave, just on that then, obviously it's still in the early stages at the moment, but do you foresee any changes in the direction of your job description?
I guess it's kind of where most of the operational direction comes from, whether it's more at a NEMA level. At the moment, obviously we work closely across the region with through the regional group plan, and our local plans are aligned to that. But sort of part of I think of the review, some of the options that will be coming through is whether there's NEMA has more direct I guess, impact on operational decisions, training decisions, under those 4 R's, readiness, the requirements through legislation for us to, I guess, follow through at a national level, what NEMA, the national agency, is saying at the moment, is certainly through at a regional level and through our local councils, obviously, that we're all employed locally. So I think that is definitely one of the options that they'll look at, is whether it goes more of a national type model. But I think some of the key things have already been, some of that consultations already started, I think. And I think the initial feedback to Andrew, Wayne Allen, and also Helen Beaver from Waitama, part of our shared service arrangement, was that the actual local, how we're running it as part of a shared service, works well for us, albeit there may be some tweaks and improvements along the way, certainly through legislation as well to support us. So, yeah, again, so many things going on, but it'll be one of those ones that we will slip under the radar because, you know, certainly some impact on us. I think there's quite a good summary there. I don't need to go through on the Whakaari White Island court case. You know, that was obviously of national significance, but that sort of focuses around, I guess, work safe, prosecuting NEMA, and I guess there was some, I guess, media fallout for the local civil defence group in that area as well, which was unintended. It was an unintended consequence out of the court case, but that outlines that there. Again, I think we're starting to see some national initiatives more proactive around, I guess, the messaging and communication, and from our perspective at a local level, that's quite good. We've been pushing at a regional level around, I guess, a national plan that we can piggyback off. You know, this time of the year, I see in the reports highlighting around flooding and, you know, severe weather. Summertime might be drought, and it gives us an opportunity to actually go into our sort of local, whether it be local papers, social media, our websites, and actually piggyback off that. But we, you know, up till now, we've struggled to get that out of them. We're actually even a regional level, but certainly it's quite good to see that that progress coming through. So and some structure around that. So we do have a communication plan that we work through within each of our councils and our comms teams, just updating those, I guess, the weather alerts and the warnings. We're right in the middle of one coming tomorrow. I think it's just been upgraded around that weather patterns coming for our region as well. To a watch, I think certainly, and they're asking for staff to go down to the South Island, which just came through this morning. So, you know, we're seeing more of those, and how we communicate that messaging and those alerts through the public, and that understanding is good for us. And again, through our community response plans, anything we get, we can push out early to those communities, those contacts that we have there. Probably the only other thing worth highlighting was, and it was part of each of the long-term plans, was as part of the regional approach, was we were required to exercise annually where it was assessed, formally assessed. Obviously, we do other exercises, we do other training during the year, but at a regional level with independent assessors to test our capability and readiness. And so that's in there on page 5, I think. And as part of our, I guess, the strength of our shared service arrangement, to be able to draw people together, we scored as the higher level of advancing. And that's paragraph 7.4. You can see the scoring regime, and we were probably, if not the top 2 across the whole Waikato region in terms of our emergency operations centre capability. So that was a good score. That was encouraging for us. Always work to do, but we're certainly on the right track there through that independent assessment. And I touched on the communication plan on the back, but yeah, other than that, just a quick summary of the report. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Dave.
That's really worship. Yeah, thanks, David. Really good report, and good to see that we're catching up with timeliness. And yeah, I think good to see the communications. Like, it's been one of the things that I've read in the minutes and in the group plan, that it's going to community communications was something that we all needed to work on. It looks like we're finally starting to see a bit more of that. And yeah, recommend people have a look at the link to the Get Ready. When we're out in the community, and some people who we have had connections with, the way that the old civil defence used to run, and with the Red Cross boxes in our local halls and what have you, this year it's I know not everyone has access to internet, but for everyone who does, if they can have a look at the information that is out there, and some of the messaging is about, you know, looking like you need to look after yourselves, but it's not just that. But one of the things when I was looking at the for example, the flooding link on the Get Ready, information for yourself in your own home and what you should think about before that sort of thing. But if you are being flooded, and I hadn't thought about it, the things to lift off the floor included your curtains. So yeah, I can just imagine that if you've got floor length curtains, then wouldn't be much water before the whole set's. Yeah, and whether there's an opportunity there in the community plan for those people who are living at height to be able to come into town and help people pack stuff up before. And we're certainly getting prior warning for those sorts of things happening, that we can do a bit more communication and planning.
Yeah, thanks for that endorsement, Councillor, because all of that information is, it's just improved so much in the last sort of 2 years, really. And it's there, and I guess it's making sure that when something comes along, like a weather event, that through our comms teams, that we're actually relevant to that particular, and we quickly put that information up and then share the links. And once you're in there, there is that it's actually really well, I guess, articulated. It's easy to see. There's visual, there's videos, and there are things there that a really practical approach. And not too complex, for people. So no, it's all of that stuff there is there. It's just a matter of us making sure people can link to it easily. And some of that, around our monthly focus as well, that we've tried to actually work again off the NEMA program, but actually it's some of it is just practical common sense. We know summertime, it's drought or it's wildfire. We know Kāwhia and Aotea, I think is the second highest across the whole region around risk of wildfire through those areas. So it's working with our plans, with our local emergency services, people around that readiness and what we do. So, and some of that is, again, sits with, in that case, families, but actually we know we're going to have to evacuate people and support people. That certainly then comes back to civil defence around their welfare. So, yeah.
Yes, Councillor Jeffries.
Well, thanks, Worship. Yes, just following on from Councillor Williams' comments too, Dave. Yeah, good report, Councillor. Yeah, and just picking up on what you're saying there about Kāwhia, you're probably aware that quite a few months ago now, we had a homeless person who went out to Tom French Grove and made himself at home under pine trees and lit a fire to keep himself warm. And fortunately, the wind was blowing across the land out to sea. If it had been blowing the other way, that forest could have been smoke. And I guess as a result of that, there was a lot of concern expressed locally about what is Kāwhia's plan in the event of a major fire out there. And I noticed that we had here, we had some community engagement out of COPA and with Ari and Sam. I'm just wondering whether it's possible perhaps to give some thought to having some sort of a session out Kāwhia way, so that and the emergency response plan and all that sort of stuff can be given out. Yeah, it's just those sorts of things that sort of there was at times a lot of nervousness about Kāwhia situations.
Totally understand that. It is an area, that can be easily isolated. Just on that kind of sort of raises an important thing that we're working on, again, around some funding arrangements, but underway is across our, I guess, 3 councils, actually including our Waikato District Council, is pulling all of our emergency plans together. We have an overall, I guess, civil defence emergency management plan for Ōtorohanga Council. People ask, well, what do we do? And this is what we're about. But I guess it's that operational level plan. And we do have some, certainly flooding for Ōtorohanga. There's a plan there around that, but actually it's pulling all of our plans together, actually. So we've got a practical plan for each of probably our top 5 highest risk hazards. And again, relevant to a particular area, one size doesn't fit all. So we're looking to engage, I guess, so people to write that plan is a significant piece of work. and across our 3 councils, because there is definitely synergies down the coastal areas, and people that write that plan have done it in the Hawke's Bay, are doing some work at regional level. I think through Joint Committee and KEG have employed that person. So piggybacking off that, just to make sure that we actually pull our plans and have that operation, and it will last us for a long time, because generally our hazards and risks, are consistent over the years. They're probably just in terms of frequency and severity have increased, through we've seen that through climate change, but severe weather, flooding, wildfire and kawhia, coastal erosion, sort of as we go further south, that sort of thing remain constant for us. So it's around having that operational plan and evacuation plan, formalised where will people go, sectorised, so we can actually work with emergency management. We're not trying to do that at 2 o'clock in the morning. We've done that actually where everyone knows where the plan is and understands it. So that's something that over the next probably 12 months that there's a bit of work in that, but we'll be looking to advance, and it will certainly help what we raised. Thank you, Councillor, and also across the whole area.
Do we know which houses or properties will flood in the whole of the district? Is it on the LIM reports, or?
It's a technical question that I'm not sure about the LIM reports, but obviously there's a flood plan for Ōtorohanga, for instance.
But is every property identified as being a flood risk?
Currently not, according to my chief executive's head shaking.
Through you, Worship. No, we have some hazard information on LIM reports, usually triggered by consent applications. So in the assessment around resource consents and building consents, we will often overlay the hazard information onto the property file, but we do have quite a significant hazard maps, and some of those maps have been used, of course, in the Ōtorohanga Town Concept Plan, and the Regional Council do a lot of work in terms of mapping, hazard mapping, etc. We tend to contribute and co-fund that work across the Waikato region, and the Regional Council often pulls that together for us.
I've just had the experience recently of our property being tested to see if it was a flood prone. Yes, we were.
Really?
Yes. So that's why.
Yeah.
The Regional Council has its portal, definitely so for those coastal areas. It's got quite a good tool there that once you plug into it, it shows the inundation if the, certain, I guess, rises of 1 metre, 2 metres, and what areas will be, but it's not down specifically to each house. That's across the region, so you can get an indication from the portal.
So, yes, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just to presume that operational plan, like for say for example, the local community, that's can we look at that, or
that's with I think Nadia has it. There's just some other plans within that plan. Is some links to some plans that just need to be finalised, like locally. So it's an overall civil defence plan, but within it, it might have a pandemic plan that that you click through the glossary, sort of pulling those together. An overarching plan, but it does link with emergency management. So we're just looking at that links. There probably is some information in that might be, I guess, specific to council. I guess that's at a local level, council level, would have to be reviewed as to whether that was opened to the public on a site or whatever. But certainly that plan is there. The Goima Official Information Act request came through to say, hey, do we have a plan in place?
Yes, it's just-
And the recovery plan is part of that, which through legislation we have to have.
Just in terms of the community ability to self-manage, just last time we had significant rain the time before, but I had a call and sort of people getting worried that the river level was coming up, and I put them onto the regional council river level monitoring report so that they could be looking at that themselves.
Yes.
There was time gone by when us as councillors used to receive those emails automatically.
Well, the river alerts, I think you can count that, but they go quite often. So one of the thing pinging all hours of the night, but yeah, so basically all through the region, you know, there's levels sort of 1, 2, up to 3. And I guess that the regional council monitors that. They have what they call flood room live. So with this weather pattern coming over the next few days, I see there's a meeting scheduled for this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So they'll put their flood room live. So they're responsible for actually giving that information around river levels, around flooding through the area. Where we step in is actually once people are affected. You know, and is it looking like actually there's going to be evacuations or those sorts of things? But up to that point, it's actually the release of that information is flood room lives, river alerts. You know, most of us are on those through civil defence, so we're watching those through the different levels. Yeah, at any point we'll bring our civil defence teams together as they get, certainly after the second alert. We will be bringing our teams together, but in terms of that information around the get ready sites, it's actually knowing to do those sites are really good around actually, or how do we prepare? You know, we look at the river, it's you know, it's getting high, but yeah, the overall monitoring of those river levels and dragging their information together sits with regional council and the flood.
So what advice should we give people who ring us up saying what's explaining, like, you know, the river's flooding, what should we be doing? You know, I mean, we should be pointing them in the direction of that.
Well, really, you could do, but really at that point, we would be pushing information out through website, through what we call PIM, our public information management within civil defence, which effectively is your comms team. Within council, your comms person. And then it's us making sure that actually we, you know, go to the website, go to your Facebook pages,
council,
and within those areas that don't have that, actually those community response plans, those will be the go-to people that, and generally those towns are looking after themselves. Really, we will ring them up and say, hey, but when I say looking after themselves, they're good at actually pushing the information out themselves. We just keep feeding it through the flood room, make sure they get it early.
I think we can be assured that there is, there's a plan in place. The trouble is that if you haven't got an emergency, you're not using the plan. But it's not to say that
We're not.
and a good example was this morning on radio with the PIMs coming out regarding the inundation that are being expected down in the South Island. The work that Dave's talking about there is underway down there, and they are on radio telling people what they need to be aware of. And I think it needs for us as local councillors here to spread the message more. It's not about you're on your own, mate. It's about taking responsibility in your household, but that there is an overarching guidance that, you know, will reach you when you need it. But I mean, down to the thing on the flood, down to like poster flooding, cleaning up the flood, little things like throw away any wooden spoons, plastic utensils, and baby bottle teats and dummies if they've been covered by flood water. There's no way to safely clean them. But just household practical experience that it would be good to read through in preparation for something that may or may not happen, but be assured that there are certainly people watching out for what's coming. So this is on getready.government, getready.govt.nz, and it's household level advice on flooding, tsunamis. It's in heaps of languages, including sign. Videos there, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Just recently, so.
yeah.
And like, and one last question, is just like with regard to the New Zealand caravan motorhome, but the parking area down the road. I mean, they're just a private organisation like anybody else, and they have to, you know, make their own warnings, or is that?
Well, I guess it's a bit like farmers, you know, they're told to move stock to high ground. The message goes out through our website, and as it gets higher, I guess that's where, you know, we tested our capability within our emergency management, our emergency operating centres. So how ready are we to stand that up? Or do we have capability to manage an emergency? So some of it's scalable to start with, you know, weather's on the way. It's about the function of our comms people is actually pushing that information. It gets higher, we just scale up, we make that emergency operations team bigger. It may be that we've got to move some people quickly, just ready to do that. But yeah, I guess it's confidence in the system, civil defence. So that's why they're looking to change it to emergency management. There's not an army of people, you know, within civil defence. There's 2 of us that work across 3 councils. It's not an emergency response. There's still fire, police, those people that are responsible for the responding. But obviously under pressure, what we say to people, well, quite often the first responders are going to be yourself, you know, and you might need to help your neighbour, you know, to do some things. Fire and police are still 111, so that's their job to manage that. Our job as civil defence is actually to coordinate it when it gets to that level, and certainly that welfare of people, that if people are displaced or evacuated, those other agencies don't have that arm to do that. That we do. That's unique to civil defence emergency management, that welfare function, that ability to manage people, companion animals, all those sorts of things. That's why, you know, we have that range of civil defence centres. It's not just a school, somewhere where we can, you know, people can take their pets and animals. So, yeah, I think there's an element of confidence, but certainly not overconfidence, because we're dealing with Mother Nature, really. Yeah.
Any further questions, councillors? Dave, really good report, thank you. I was especially interested in reading the bit about the Karu case and the frustrations from them. It must have been, it was really challenging at the time. And certainly remember when we played out on the news without understanding what the responsibilities were of the respective organisations. So thank you for that. So staff recommendation is that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Report from Dave Symes, Operations Manager, Emergency Management. Moved Councillor Ferguson, seconded Councillor Williams. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Okay, going back to item 273, Hamilton and Waikato Tourism End of Year Report. Nadia.
So Hamilton Waikato Tourism highlighted in the attached report from the organisation is the appointment of Nicola Greenwell as Chief Executive, who was acting CEO following Jason Wilson's departure into Air New Zealand, as you mentioned previously, Your Worship. The report also highlights the continued impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector, along with the dedicated work that the organisation is doing to promote both the region and the individual districts in order to lessen the economic repercussions that we are experiencing. Other than that, I'm very happy to take questions and we'll try my best to answer them.
Yes, Councillor.
Is the development board also showing an interest in the tourist activities? Because over the years I attended quite a few of the events that Hamilton Waikato was on, and it was really useful just to get ideas of what people were doing throughout the whole of the Waikato. And it was free to go to, and they used to hold it at the airport. And so I really commend that you have people who could follow through with going to those things.
Thank you, Councillor, through your worship. As noted in the report regarding the Ōtorohanga District Development Board, we are definitely leaning on them to be representative of council with some of these external partners, which includes the Hamilton Waikato Tourism. I try and attend where I can because I feel I'm very much in that learning space still, being new to the district as much as to council. But I do see this sort of relationship as being shared with the Ōtorohanga District Development Board.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Worship, through your worship. Nadia, on the attached report under the heading commercial accommodation in Ōtorohanga, can't give you a occasion, sorry. I'm just curious, do we have any statistics on the accommodation that's been used for emergency housing? And I'm just interested on the effective availability of accommodation for tourists and visitors that want to stay in the Ōtorohanga district.
Through your worship, I don't have those stats. We could try and source those for you. I don't know if Hamilton Waikato Tourism themselves have those stats at such a granular level. That would be something that I may have to go to, say, MSD for. Regionally, it is an issue which has come up in regional meetings with Waikato Tourism, Hamilton Waikato Tourism, and it is acknowledged, I think, probably nationally, that as we open up, and we have opened up our borders, and as those tourist numbers increase, if there is enough adequate and fit for purpose accommodation still. So it is being looked at by Hamilton Waikato Tourism regionally.
Okay, thank you. Just one other, sorry. Under the heading non-commercial accommodation, it's specifically Airbnbs are mentioned, but does that include just Airbnbs, or does it include the likes of Book a Batch or those types of accommodation? And were those stats actually including the Airbnbs and so on out at Kāwhia and Aotea? You know?
I'm going to make an assumption here that people that perhaps are on Book a Batch may also be on Airbnb. I don't know if you have to be exclusive to one or the other. I can only go on what the report says, which is that this is Airbnb. And when it comes to that more granular level, I know that they are very cautious of sharing that sort of information in a public forum, because in a small group, it can be possibly too obvious as to who they're referring to. And so to keep things anonymous, it is a certain level at which we can report.
Yeah, I think the question is probably around the number of 42 properties, and I just thought that there may be more. That's the question. Thank you.
Councillor Christensen.
I was just going to talk to the accommodation in town. I think mostly emergency accommodation has been used at our holiday parks, not our motels. I know Main North Road was fairly empty this last week. Yeah, and Palm Court was full, but that was due to a couple of events that were happening in town.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Just with regard to the page 62, which is the marketing activity for Ōtorohanga. It's got a great list of stuff going on here, which is awesome. Where do they get all that information from? Is that, or who compiles all that? I'm just wondering, it's pretty inconvenient. Is it are they going off websites or just searching, or is it from the ISOS? I'm just curious to know where they get such in-depth information. It sounds like they've got lots going on there. It's great.
Isn't it when you use your card?
No pressure, Nadia, knowing the
No.
challenges of just actually presenting a report rather than.
I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just
you-
curious.
Sorry, I set myself down the wrong path here. I thought you talked about the marketing activity for Ōtorohanga. Were you referring to the,
Yeah, the page, it's entitled marketing activity for Ōtorohanga.
Okay, yep.
It's got a table there, which, impressive.
so through you, your worship, if I'm answering this correctly, so the campaigner activity is what Hamilton Waikato Tourism undertake themselves. And the Ōtorohanga experiences in the last column that are profiled are ones that they're probably quite aware of and have been long-standing. Nonetheless, I know they work closely with the eyesight and the Ōtorohanga District Development Board to continue to build information on what is available in our district. Does that answer your question?
Why not tell the story as a yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nadia. Nothing further. Staff recommendations that Ōtorohanga District Council received the report, Hamilton Waikato Tourism End-of-Year Report, and received the Hamilton Waikato Tourism End-of-Year Report to Ōtorohanga District Council. So we have two parts to it there. I'll move that to a second, please. Second, Councillor Ferguson. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 274. Now that you're comfortably in the seat, Nadia, this final annual report.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's nothing more that I can really add to this report with the attachment, and am happy to take questions on the activities of Thrive in our relationships.
So I'll just add to that, Nadia is presenting on behalf of Thrive, probably doesn't know the real term of going ons, but she can answer the questions somewhat as a cover over. Yes, Councillor Ross.
Can I ask if Thrive have a social work side to it?
For the social
Work side. Do they employ social workers?
Sorry, to Thrive. They've got a mentor in Jackson Wilson who interacts with the coastal schools along with the college. They have Jenny from, she works at Thrive, her husband's a pastor of other churches. So there's terms of, and both Peter and Carol are trained to a certain level of terms of counselling.
So they do go out to a family and
I don't know if they interact with families per se, but certainly in terms of the advice they're giving to you run rangatahias around their own personal and professional development. Sorry, hopefully I didn't step on any toes.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, this is a glaring lack of counsellors around anywhere in the Waikato here as well. So they do what they can within the capacity and the training that they have. So I know Peter's undergoing similar training this coming year as well.
I just came across them and there was a car outside with Thrive on the floor. So
Questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Williams.
I'm not sure that you'll be able to answer it. I didn't see an answer in the report. And perhaps we need to ask for the mentoring and was that there's not enough funding to fully fund even one mentor and ongoing funding is not reliable. Didn't see like there's no question asked there about what the solution would be. What's the solution to that? Like they've identified an issue. Are they looking for a solution?
Okay, I'll do my best to answer that one as well. They have identified an issue. There's a real problem there in terms of balance to the books over the coming months and for this year. I'll approach the Ministry of Education looking at if I can fill a good portion of that percentage. I was having tested, but I'll be asking the question a few times now. I thought I had an answer back this morning, just earlier text came ahead. So I'm assuming since the gentleman wasn't in the meeting I was in yesterday, was either sick or on holiday. But yeah, just seeing what other, through other sources where that funding can partially or totally predict that. But yeah, exploring all options as they continue. Thank you, Nadia. Staff recommendation here is that we receive the report, the Tribe report, and receive the Tribe year report. Move and second that, Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Williams, all in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on, Nadia, Waikato Regional Council and Boris Schools Program.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my understanding is that through the long-term plan process, councillors indicated that they wanted to see more schools involved in the program and increase the funding from 4K to 6K annually. Due to council staff changes and vacancies that we've experienced in the past financial year, the support required by council for increasing the school's participation wasn't available. However, Michelle Daly, who is our environmental senior Enviro Schools manager, so that, her and I are meeting this week to discuss how we can get this activity happening for this financial year. The other note that I will make, which I didn't highlight in the report, is what Friends of Enviro Schools are. So Friends of Enviro Schools are schools that have either expressed an interest in becoming an Enviro school and are keen to find out more, or perhaps the timing isn't quite right for them, or maybe they don't have a whole school approach ready to go. So in the meantime, Enviro schools might work with a specific classroom, for example, using Enviro school resources as a taster experience. So an example might be supporting a senior class on a stream study. So that's the difference between a full Enviro school and Friends of Enviro School.
Now, on that note, those friends of, or those that haven't even yet become friends, is there much conversation with them about going and visiting the likes of the Enviro schools to see what's going on? Do you know if the regional council?
I don't know the answer to that, Your Worship, but I'll bring that up with Michelle when we meet on Thursday, if you like.
Questions, councillors? Thank you. So we have the recommendation is received the Waikato Regional Council Enviro Schools report to Ōtorohanga District Council. So I can move in the second for that. Move Councillor Williams, second Councillor Johnson. All in favour? Against? Harry, thank you. Nadia, if you can just pass on our appreciation and thanks for those reports from Hamilton Waikato Tourism Thrive and Enviro Schools. It's really good to have them, and in the future we will hopefully have the opportunity to see more person. Thank you, and thank you for presenting on that.
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you to Nadia. I think for your work in coordinating all these reports, it's really good to see the actions out of our long-term plan coming to reporting that's required.
Okay, moving on to, there's no further questions there around council updates. Councillor Kloss, would you like to start with you this one?
Haven't really got anything in particular.
Thanks, Nadia.
But I did try very hard to try and have an election in Ōtorohanga ward, because you keep telling me that I got in on the sly
They said they want to sit behind your back.
So it just didn't work. But anyway, you've got my immediate neighbour coming, and she will be as niggly as I was.
So I had a conversation with Katie this morning, and she was very nice on the phone, and it's I'm sure she'll be that way. Well, through the next
Yes, so,
And I see your other neighbour is, or just up the road, is running for provincial council. Judy Shearer.
she's living close to Tiong, isn't it? Oh, well, that'll stir things the pot. Goodness me. Well, that's good. That's good. So there's a couple of women there who will be, won't take the answer that they're given.
This is your other councillor.
That's right. So, other than that, for kids, if you want to know how to fund security cameras for Kawhia, I can put you in touch with the person who raised the money to get 4 cameras in Irahina with no trouble at all. So,
We raise the money for Kawhia.
no, just you guys do your work yourselves. Other than that, I haven't really got anything to add.
So we'll wait for the big contribution next month
Big contribution.
from yourself.
What did we get the last say?
I'm sure they'll have our say.
I won't say we'll let you speak to mine, I may stop short of that.
Okay, I'll look forward to it. I'll make sure I'm here.
Councillor Williams.
Well, relatively busy time. Just heading off to conference after the last meeting, so thank you very much for the opportunity to go. I found it inspiring. I think Roy and I were probably sitting in the right part of the room. We were away from the front and centre, who may have been grumbling about what was happening on stage. But yeah, and Tanya's report was captured the essence of it really well. Also attended the Unpacking Resource Management. There's another one coming up. So quite good to keep ahead of those. We had a risk and insurance meeting, we had federal funding. I listened to the ATM and all remits were passed. Probably a couple of interesting things were said before the meeting actually started. The value of the conference, but I think they might have been sitting in the wrong part of the room as well. Performance review committees met, and also the work with the town concept plans.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
You just sort of the national conference. It's a Williams size. It's interesting to go there with a yellow wall of police and a few hardy groundswell people in leggings and raincoat and signs in the howling wind and rain, making sure they get the point across. So yeah, a lot of people have a great interest in that part of the national conference and getting message across anyway. So I also found it inspiring. I always take lots of notes, and it's always good to reread those and just sort of pick out the most important one. I also just attended the Better Off funding one here in this room, and also the town concept plan briefing. It's been my lot for the month.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Mr. Worship, yes, well, we had the last council meeting obviously on the 9th of July, went to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting on the 26th, and the Better Off workshop on the 27th. And then on the 28th of July, Kawhia Pride Festival Committee had a meeting. There's some information coming out of that, which will be released by the chairperson eventually. 3rd of August, the CEO's performance review, and the 4th of August was the workshop. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I've been busy with work, as we know. Did a town concept plan session in here. I'm returning from Australia with my employer. I made the final decision that I would not be putting my name forward for this year. Probably realise that now. all the best to everyone who's in standing, and I'll carry on to the end of my term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Chris.
I haven't really been up to much, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Lindsay Kuth on the appointment of principal at Ōtorohanga College. I think it's long overdue that she's been appointed, and yeah, really looking forward to her success, because my daughter's 2 years away from going there. And also me and Max and Nadia talked about the importance of having lots of support for rangatahi. So I just wanted to highlight to you all, you probably don't know, but there's actually a really strong youth group in town run with no funding by Mel and her husband Jake O'Brien. And there's also another rangatahi justice that's setting up a train to try and get funding for a youth centre in town. So yeah, there is lots happening in the space. So yeah, it'd be really cool to get all of those together in a room, so that they can work together maybe, and include Robbie too with sports. So it might be something I put on my little action plan. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Okay, we're now moving on to resolution to exclude the public. Councillor Jeffries, I believe you need to be out of here at this time.
Yes, thank you, Worship.
I'll let you unplug yourself. Because we're going to the seats. So that's on that note. I'll say goodbye to you guys now. Thank you. Brendan. Brendan, around. Brendan. Okay. We're going to go into public excluded now, mate.
Have you put the recommendation, Max?
Not yet. I'm just, I can put it forward right now if that is helpful.
Yeah, you need to do the resolution in public to exclude before we turn off the live stream and that.
Okay, I will move at this stage. We're going to go to a public excluded. I would like to move that. Can I have a second, please? Second, Councillor Williams. All in favour? Against? Okay, we're now moving into the public excluded series of meetings. So bye.
See ya. I'm going to make sure that everyone leaves.
Yes.